Hi everyone, my name is Mariko and I'm a multimodal therapist and intuitive. I wonder if you struggle to identify and then, nourish your own needs. Because a lot of the clients that I work with, and I guess me myself, I find this quite difficult to do. It's not a surprise that a lot of the clients that I work with are sort of reflections of my own self. That's the way it goes. Frequency, resonance, vibration. We tend to attract mirrors of ourselves. I mean, you could argue that everyone's a mirror of you, and yes, to a degree that's true. But I would say that I do notice that I tend to work with a lot of people who really struggle to identify their needs. They struggle to know what their own needs are, and therefore they find it very difficult to actually get them met, because if you don't know what your needs are, how do you actually meet them? And what this can lead to is disastrous consequences, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So in this video, I really wanted to talk about a recent experience of mine, and I'll share an anecdote here and talk about why it's so important to practice understanding what your needs are, especially if you are an empath, or if you might even identify as like a rescuer. So on Karpman's drama triangle, the three roles, which are dysfunctional roles, but nevertheless, persecutor, rescuer, and victim. And I tend to attract a lot of rescuers in my practice. And what rescuers have in common is that they usually are so busy kind of focusing on solving other people's problems that they actually find it quite difficult to know what their own problems are and know what their own needs are. So firstly, I wanted to share a little anecdote. I recently just turned 40, and I feel like I have finally learned this lesson now, because you know how it goes with lessons. You learn them in layers, really. Rarely do you actually learn something all in one fell swoop. But sure, whilst I've known for decades the importance of meeting your own needs first, the importance of actual self-nourishment, meeting yourself first, and maybe, for example, a good way of doing that is having a consistent morning routine. Yes, I've known that in theory, but it has been rather difficult to consistently implement this in my own life. Now, one of the reasons for this is, yes, I struggle with ADHD. And, one of the major things about that is kind of poor time management, but also consistency. Establishing consistent, healthy routines can be tricky. I'm much more impulsive. And so actually committing to myself that I was going to release and upload one YouTube video every week was something really important. It was a really important goal for me, and I'm happy to say that for the most part, since last October that I started doing this, I have been able to upload one YouTube video a week. So yes, you've got to celebrate the small wins. But back to my anecdote. So I recently turned 40, and one of my lovely birthday surprises this year, I had a really good birthday. So I'm so grateful to say. My partner, my husband, surprised me by inviting a few of my close friends to visit me from abroad, and we went on a road trip to Italy. And these two friends of mine are such great, healthy influences for me. They are very reliable, dependable people. They are the heads of companies. So, of course, they have to be reliable, dependable. And what they have been doing for many years now, both of them individually, is to have an absolute non-negotiable morning routine every day. And what's so inspiring about being around her is that wherever she is in the world, right, for whatever reason, whether it's her own holiday, whether it's a business trip, she doesn't get negatively influenced or swept up by where she's at and what she needs to do. She will still find ways to continue her own morning routine because she knows that it is absolutely fundamental for her to show up to the world, to her work, to her family, to her friends in the best way possible. So, I've been with her for a business trip for a week in a completely different country where she has sought out a nearby gym, and she has, gotten a 1-week gym membership just so that she can do her morning exercise, so that she can feel good in her body and feel completely present in her day. It's so inspiring. So when I was on this trip for a week with my friends, it was so beautiful to see them just every day waking up, not asking anyone for permission, and just getting on with their morning routine. And their morning routine consisted of exercise and then meditation or something, quiet like that. Something where they, fully kind of spent time alone with themselves. So, but my friend does meditate, right? So exercise, meditation, and then showering and getting ready to be able to then, show up for brunch, lunch, feeling refreshed and good and grounded and centered and present. Whereas me, on the other hand, I would wake up and immediately kind of feel this pressure that is not there. Feel this sort of pressure of, I'm in this group dynamic. I need to just go with the flow of the group. And no one's asking that of me. And so I would kind of just be waiting around and not do my own thing. Luckily by day 3, I would also, under her influence, just establish my own morning routine and do my own exercise and do my own thing. And thank God for that, because it did allow me to feel good, right? But before that, it's like this, what is it? Is it a resistance to, it's either a resistance to showing up for myself, to meeting myself, or I think in a lot of cases for my clients, for example, it's that they are not even aware of what their needs are. So this is really why I wanted to make this video, is to just remind you to try to become aware of what it is that makes you feel good, what it is that you need to feel optimal. And what happens if you continue to ignore or suppress your own needs is, we've all probably experienced it, but you start to get resentful. You start to get tired. You start to get more and more disconnected to yourself, and you get resentful, irritable, and it can lead to burnout, right? In severe cases, burnout or breakdowns. So it's a really dangerous path to continue to be unaware of your needs and to continue to not get them met. And having needs is absolutely part of human nature, or it's not just human nature, it's just part of nature. Every living thing has needs. And so it doesn't make you needy, it just makes you alive. And so identifying those needs is such an important thing that I wish they would teach at schools. And I find that the most successful people are the ones that are clear on what their needs are and then get them met. And of course, we have to be careful here with what getting them met means. Now, we do not need to get them met at the expense of others' well-being, right? I mean, that is aggression. But it is important to, in the context that I'm talking about, when I'm talking about morning routines, for example, knowing that you owe it to yourself, and there is nothing wrong with asking for a little bit of support to be able to meet your own needs. Again, I don't want to go too much into this direction because, of course, in a relationship, there's give and take and compromises are necessary. And of course, there's going to be, you're going to have to juggle timing sometimes so that both partners ideally can get their own needs met at different times. And, teamwork is necessary. But in the anecdote that I shared, and in the case of my own self where I have a dog that needs to be walked, etc., it's okay if I spend half an hour meeting myself and meeting my needs first. She's going to be fine. She's not going to die, and she's not going to even notice, really. And it's really interesting when I notice my husband, and in general, men are better at meeting their needs first, because women's brains are wired to think of the collective before thinking of themselves. Because, biologically, we give birth. So we have children. We are wired to care for our children first and think about, how we've evolved through tribal societies where it's the women that cook for the whole family, etc. Right? So we are wired differently. But it's so interesting when I notice how my husband can so much more easily, guilt-free and just with second nature, wake up and just get on with his morning routine. And he's like, oh, the dog will be fine. The cat will be fine. I'm going to do my stuff first. And when I'm ready, I will walk her. And yes, that is a healthier approach. It's just like when you're on the airplane, you would take your own oxygen mask first before giving it to your child. It's absolutely necessary to meet yourself first. And a lot of times with people who would call themselves empaths, well, another word for that is highly sensitive, right? Or sensitive folk. Well, sensitive people, I think you can definitely be born sensitive. But the other angle to that is that you develop sensitivity at a very young age because your environment didn't feel quite safe, or because you had caregivers that weren't fully present to meeting your emotional needs. Emotional needs. This does not mean that your physical needs were neglected. There could be a house over your head, all your food is met, but having your emotional needs not fully met in childhood is a very common thing. And often people I work with aren't even aware that that is what happened to them until I really help them to see it. And what happens when your emotional needs were not met to the point at which you deserved, to the point at which a child should have them met and reflected back to them, is that we grow up not really understanding what our needs were. Because if they were never acknowledged or reflected back to us, we start to develop a disconnect with our own needs. So we start to either ignore them or deny them or suppress them, or eventually not even become able to acknowledge what they are. This is something I see quite a lot in my clients, is that they don't know what their needs are. They don't know what makes them happy because they have gone so many years meeting other people's needs, whether that is their children's, their partners, their friends. And, this starts to go into rescuer territory on the Cartman drama triangle. And a rescuer is one that sweeps in to rescue anyone, even if they've not been asked to. They will go in and try to help and solve situations, even if they've not been asked. And often, one of the unconscious reasons that they do this is because whilst they're busy solving other people's problems, they actually don't have to sit with the discomfort of their own problems, with their own anxieties. So it's kind of a defense mechanism. Another reason that a rescuer might do this is because they've learned that the way to feel love is to actually be needed. Now, it doesn't matter why we are this way. Well, I mean, of course it does, but in this conversation, it doesn't matter so much. What matters is to start to become aware of what it is that you need. So, a good way of doing this is to understand and identify what it is that makes you feel better, what makes you feel more energized, what and who gives you energy. And when I say who, it doesn't even mean necessarily that you have to be with that person. But it could be like, you really appreciate the voice, the thoughts, the energy of a spiritual teacher or some kind of, an author. And perhaps it's that you can play some of their talks or lectures on YouTube and immersing yourself in that person's energy, that person's thoughts, words, is enough to give you a little lift. So, it doesn't have to be that you need to have people in person to enrich you, to inspire you positively, right? And we can really thank technology for that. But the sooner that you can start to identify what it is in your life gives you energy, elevates you, whether that's activities, people, or even places, do more of that. The second thing is, just like in the anecdote I shared, the way you start each day is really important because it sets the tone for the day. And I know that we all know this. It's not new. But still, it's so often that, myself included, and the clients that I see, they just don't spend the extra few minutes in the morning to meet themselves first. And what I mean by meet themselves first is you wake up in the morning, you've been in sleep, right? You've not been here. You wake up in the morning, and who do you greet first? I would love for that to be you, because the most important relationship in your life is the one with yourself. And yes, I know this sounds like a cliche, but it is. And if we don't meet ourselves first, then we're sort of just going through the motions of the day. And it really does prevent us sometimes from being present and being conscious day to day, moment to moment. So then it ends up that the days turn into weeks, and lo and behold, it's been, a whole month where you've just gone through the motions and you've actually not been very present, not been very mindful. So if you can start your morning in a conscious way, then you can show up, in the pockets of that day more consciously. It's a little bit like mindfulness meditation. This is why they always recommend you to do it first thing in the morning and last thing at night, because then it's just that really good visceral reminder. And then throughout the day, you will be reminded of that initial start to your morning. You'll be reminded to stay present, to stay grounded, centered throughout the day. So the morning routine is so important. And it doesn't have to take long. That's the thing. It's not about the quantity of time, but really the quality of how you spend that time. So it could honestly just be 10 minutes. 10 minutes first thing in the morning before you even say hello to anyone. You can just go into a corner and just sit with yourself. And you can even talk to yourself. You can just repeat some positive affirmations. You can just do some positive visualizations, visualizing how your day could go, how you want your day to go. It's as simple as that. But just meeting yourself consciously first thing in the morning can really dictate the rest of your day. And of course, if you can, extend that morning routine to incorporate a little bit of everything, a bit of physical movement, stretching or exercise, Maybe something spiritual, a bit of chanting or prayer or meditation. Something using your energy, whether that's qigong or some, yoga postures. Some kind of breath work. EFT is also energetic. Then if you can start your day in that, like a small holistic routine, it really is a game changer. And it's no wonder that my inspiring friend says it's a non-negotiable for her. It's a non-negotiable. She cannot afford to skip a day like that. And she said, if she skips 1 or 2 days, she starts to notice the anxieties creep up. And I 100% agree with her. I know full well that if I don't exercise for a few days, I will start to get anxious. And I think this is normal. The human body is not designed to stay sedentary. It is designed to move. It is designed to sweat. It's designed to feel discomfort in the day, physical discomfort. It's quite interesting, isn't it, that you can just keep growing older and certain lessons just still take a long time to fully cement, right? So I'm really going to set the intention for myself that this year, in my 40th year, I really practice this. And it's not enough to know it. You have to practice it. Without the practice of it, it's useless. It's useless as an intellectual exercise. This has to be a practical step that I take, and I am now going to wake up, and before I feed the pets, I am going to sit with myself, because I know how good it feels when I do that. And at least once I've sat with myself for 5-10 minutes, I then can, without feeling any guilt, do some kind of morning routine that feels good. You see, because this is the thing, I have a big dog, I have a cat. Yes, granted, I don't have children, but I still feel this unconscious pressure that, the poor dog is waiting to be fed, the poor dog is waiting to be walked. So before I do anything, I usually feed my pets and walk the dog. And then I wait, and then I get back home and, it's too late now to do my own thing. So I end up then just going straight into work without having met myself first, you see? And so this is what I want to change this year. And I wonder if you can now take a moment to ask yourself, what could you be doing better? Maybe your morning routine is optimized and there's nothing you need to change. Or maybe, there's something else you'd like to add to it. Or maybe you don't have a morning routine. So wherever you're at, I would love for you to just take a moment to ask yourself, is there a better way you could show up to yourself every morning? Okay, and with that, if you like this video, please like it and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you next time. And I'm wishing you a beautiful morning, a beautiful day, a beautiful week.